All right, thank you, Liz, and thank you everyone for attending today. I'm excited to share some updates that have occurred recently since the last webinar we did like this in the What's New series. And so without further ado, I'm going to get into it. Right now I'm sharing my screen and I have a slide deck up and let's go over some agenda stuff before we get into it. We will do some demos though, I promise. If you've been to some of my webinars, this is probably, I think, the first one where I actually have a slide deck. We have that many cool things to highlight before the demos. So this is a big change for me. So we're going to talk about Manifest v3 real quick. It's nothing to be alarmed about. It's a pretty big code change, a lot of effort on our end to become compliant with it. But I'll explain what it is and why we had to do it. And it didn't result in any actual functionality change or loss or anything like that. So don't worry. We did make a couple UI updates that I want to highlight. We're always taking in feedback, and we made some of these updates based on usability issues that we found and feedback that all you wonderful people gave us. From there, I do want to showcase something really cool where we added support to search the element selector by a selector, a CSS selector. So I'll show that, and then we'll get into what I think is the main event today, the most recent huge feature that we shipped a couple weeks ago, which is the user flow analysis. And once we do that, I'm going to talk about the user flow analysis and give you a demo and what you might expect to see in the future with it, and what we're asking of you to tell us where we should go next. And on that note, I'll cover the roadmap, what we're working on in the near future during this quarter, and what you can expect to see in the coming months. And then I will reserve some time at the end for questions and answers. So let's dive right in. Manifest v3, what is it? It's Chrome's newest manifest format. Probably doesn't mean a lot to you, but basically Chrome highlights this as being a way for them to control extensions further to improve performance, have better security, and enhance privacy. So what that really meant for us, there's a couple things that we relied on previously. On the technical side, like what we did with what was called the background script in the extension, and we had to refactor that to become compliant with Manifest v3. The reason it was a lot of work is, we wanted to make sure that everything worked as it's supposed to. So we had a lot of, our QA team was working really hard to basically test everything in the extension to make sure nothing broke as a result of some of these fundamental foundational changes we made. Everything looked good, and we released this several weeks ago, I think over a month ago, and we haven't heard anything bad as a result. So nothing you need to be concerned with. If you are a customer, an existing customer who gets your extension from someone at DQ, you'll want to make sure that you do upgrade, because here I have an image on the screen of Google's Manifest v3 timeline, and they're saying right now is the time for all extensions to migrate. If you're an enterprise customer, you do get more time, but June 2024 is the Manifest v2 consumer deprecation. And then, which just means if you get your extensions from the Chrome store, they're saying that with new versions of Chrome could be as early as June 2024. I don't actually know which versions if this has happened yet, but they're claiming it will. They'll stop supporting new Manifest v2 extensions. And by June 2025, the same will take place for enterprise solutions. So something to be on the lookout for, but like I said, as far as Axe DevTools Extension is concerned, nothing's changed. You don't have to worry about it. You get all the same awesome features. And we do, like, if you get your extension like most of you do from the web store, you don't have to do anything. The update would have already taken place with one of our previous releases. So Chrome does do automatic updates. It's not documented how it takes place, but it takes place after we push a button within 5 hours. It depends. They roll it out slowly, so your teammate might have the new version for an hour before you do. But long story short, the updates are automatic. So let's talk about other updates in our interface. So these are some UI updates, like I said, based on your feedback. We are very feedback-driven. We have a feedback-driven roadmap, so we always want to hear all your thoughts about our software. Really value that. So we did update the splash screen for a couple of reasons. We had this new awesome feature, user flow analysis. We wanted to make sure everyone became aware of it. And we also, as a result, kind of did a little facelift and simplification on the splash screen itself. We removed some noisy background images. And then we updated the text and the icons for the primary buttons on the page, which are full page scan and partial page scan. Used to say scan all of my page, scan part of my page. And we've already gotten some feedback even on that change. Just wanted to mention that I will actually show a demo here in a second of a different update, and that is on the results screen, or the test overview, if you will. So we had a problem identified in various through various feedback, and it was that there wasn't enough real estate. There wasn't enough room to really view the issues, which is obviously the primary use case for this page. You want to review your issues. So I'm gonna click play on this. It's just a little screencast. There's no sound, and I'll describe what's happening on the page of our old UI. So this keep in mind is what the extension used to look like. I'm gonna click play, and we have a scan result with 28 issues, and then below that summary that has a impact or severity breakdown, there is the actual issues grouped by rule in a little accordion. And when you went to scroll that accordion, there's really only a third, if not maybe a quarter of the page available as part of that scrollable pane. Otherwise, you could click this toggle collapse button that would collapse most of that sticky header, but we didn't find that was very useful or valuable to users. So based on feedback, we unstickified, as I call it, but we removed the sticky header and we removed that pointless summary toggle and allowed the whole page, the whole actual extension UI to scroll like a normal web page would. No fixed elements that would eat into some of that available real estate. So we've already gotten good feedback on that change, but would love to hear your thoughts on that. If you want to see what this looks like now, I'm going to do something weird. I'm going to open up my DevTools while I'm sharing this presentation. So docked to the right side, I have my browser extension. Let me zoom in a bit to make this a little easier. On the browser extension, on the left side is my Chrome browser sharing Google Slides still. And let me go to a save test and just show you what the new result screen looks like. So now I'm on that same overview / summary page. I'm on a save test called Hello 620 Webinar, a little wave emoji. And I'm going to scroll to view my results. And as you can see, we have a full scrollable pane. Like I said, there's not just this 25% of the available height stuck in a scrollable pane. So what you can do, just like you always could, scroll through, expand some accordions, do whatever you want to do, whatever you need to do to actually look at your issue data. So small little change, just wanted to highlight that. I hope it makes your lives a little easier. If you love it, let me know. If you hate it or have other feedback, what you want to see happen with our UI or anything. I'm going to keep saying this, reiterating this, give us your feedback. All right. So search by CSS selector. We had some feedback, once again, common theme, that sometimes targeting elements is hard. If you're a front-end engineer or designer, you might know that, and you've used our element selector, selecting things with a mouse and also with a keyboard is difficult, but with a mouse especially, if there are elements that don't happen to have nice thick borders or enough padding, it's hard to target specific elements depending on like the stacking context and where they are. So we had this problem of essentially being really difficult to target an element. We also had just an efficiency problem, which was scrolling through the element selector. It's a nice keyboard and assistive technology friendly way to select elements, in the context of our partial page scan feature, or selecting elements or viewing highlighted elements during intelligent guided testing. So we had this efficiency problem too, which is like scrolling through and opening up 10 parents to get to this really nested child is hard. So can you give us a means of making that easy? And we figured out the best way to do that is through a CSS selector, which QA engineers and developers are super familiar with. In the long run, maybe we can support other things that less technical folks can target elements by. But this is a really cool way to support those efficiency gains while also making it more achievable to target smaller elements or elements with smaller footprints that are difficult to select with the mouse. So it looks like I need to enable something on mine, so I'm not going to be able to demo this feature. I'm really sorry. I'm going to move on and try to get back to this at the end. Sorry about that, guys. All right. Beyond the CSS selector, which again will let you search by a CSS selector to jump to an element in the element selector, we have the user flow analysis feature, which we're really excited to announce. It's a beta feature, which means we wanted to call this a beta feature because we wanted to ship something to you all to start getting feedback before we really iron out all the specific details of how this feature will play with existing concepts in the extension, such as intelligent guided testing, for example. So we're calling it beta because we still want to figure stuff out. We want to really get some feedback from you and determine what the next polishing feature steps should be. And so what the user flow analysis is something that allows you to test entire user journeys all in one kind of scan, consolidated scan. So that includes things like e-commerce checkout flows, entire sign-up processes, or really anything that you manipulate your state or application across, expanding accordions and going from one page to another. Anything like that is a flow. And so we allow you to essentially, and I'll show a demo here in a minute. I promise this demo will actually work. We allow you to basically click start and it'll start recording. And basically that's all you have to do on the extension side. And then from there, you start interacting with your application, manipulating state, expanding dropdowns, submitting forms, clicking navigation items, whatever you want to do to test whatever flow you're testing. And we'll detect the changes for you and automatically run acts. And so you get that full automation coverage and all the nooks and crannies of your application in all of its various states. So this, like I said, will streamline coverage. Traditionally, with testing tools like Axe, you would have kind of stood up separate tests for each kind of major milestone within a flow. So like e-commerce checkout, maybe you would have had a saved test for the shopping cart view, and then the billing and shipping information page, and then maybe the purchase review page, and then finally the purchase success page. But each one of those states, or each one of those pages probably has many states, like you submit the form, the billing information form with an error. You want to handle those error states. You want to cover that with automation as well. So this actually kind of goes beyond even what you were able to do realistically with existing feature sets without getting too crazy with the setup of saved tests. So really excited to help you streamline that coverage. Like I said, it does cover that whole flow in one single scan. So you do get a nice unified report, so that all the accessibility issues found throughout that entire user flow will show up in one single report, a shareable report, just like you're used to with traditional saved tests. And all that will save you time, of course. And so this is a beta feature, and it's also a pro feature. Pro meaning you have to have the pro license to access this feature or start a trial. A quick note about trials. We opened up trials to 14 days. We figured out that 7 days wasn't quite enough. And so we wanted it to be, wanted you to be able to use all these features during the course of a traditional 2-week sprint that a lot of you folks follow. So you'll be able to use that for the whole 14 days. And we also opened up trials to be reactivated. So if you previously trialed Axe DevTools and you decided it wasn't for you, maybe didn't have enough features, maybe you had some really important features that you requested that hadn't been implemented, maybe they have been now. Like I said, we're always reviewing our help desk several times a day. But yeah, we wanted to allow you to reactivate it to check out user flow analysis, because maybe that's reason enough that you'd want to purchase Axe DevTools Pro, or maybe you just have some good feedback for us. So we wanted to let you reactivate that trial. So if you started a trial and it ended before a couple weeks ago, when we ship this feature, you are now eligible to reactivate that. All right, so let's get into the user flow analysis demo. This one will work. So let's do something that I actually have a flow set up for in this recipe app that I use for demoing a lot. On this test page, I'm on the Awesome Food blog. I activated the blog navigation item, and we have a hero banner image kind of thing with a fancy looking burger with a knife stuck through it for some reason, and it's on some fancy looking stone plate or something like that. And below that, we have a list of all the blog posts in this blog and how long we expect it to take you to read said blog post, kind of like Medium and other blogs do, to give you an idea of how much time it'll take to read. But we also have a flow here where you can request a new blog post. So I won't get into that because I want to record a flow and get some accessibility testing coverage there. So I'm going to start that. So dock to the right side, once again, I have the Axe DevTools browser extension. I'm on the splash screen or the start screen, and we have this new user flow analysis tile. It's a beta feature, like I said. And you can also learn more about it by clicking this Learn More About User Flow Analysis. That'll take you to our documentation page. But below that is the primary call to action here, which is scan user flow. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to try to describe what's happening because there'll be a lot going on. Click start, and it says recording, 0 events recorded. Now it says 1 event recorded. And we did a full page scan, basically a scan of the initial state of my flow. This is kind of step 1, if you will. And now it says waiting for user input in the extension, that is. So over on the test page on the left side, I'm going to this awesome food blog headers options menu. I'm going to click it. So a new options menu has appeared, a little drop down, if you will. And it says state change detected, and it shows the document title of the page, which coincidentally is the word's document title. It was a placeholder issue, supposed to demonstrate a bad document title. And so now that the options menu has been opened, we detected the change and we ran acts on the whole page again. And so the first scan, the first step of our user flow had 23 issues. And then once with the options menu open, you'll see it says 24 issues. I want you to remember that because I'm going to go back to this with another cool feature that I'll be able to showcase once I'm done recording the flow. So we started off with 23 issues, now it found 24. I'm going to activate the request new blog post menu option. All right, wonderful. So I've actually navigated to a new page now. It's request new blog post as a form. I got to give you my email, the blog subject, whether or not we can follow up with you, and there's an additional information drop down that I'll activate in a minute. But meanwhile, on the extension side, it said state change detected, 4 issues found, and even gave me this new URL because we detected that it wasn't just a normal state change. The URL itself changed as well. We want to capture that information. Okay. So one thing I might do if I'm working on this flow as a developer or maybe a QA engineer is test the error state of this form. So I'm going to submit this form, and sure enough, it says in the extension, it says analyzing, please wait, and it found those same 4 issues, which means no unique issues to the error state. On the actual application, it says email is required, subject is required, it's traditional validation messages. We can do things like expand accordions, which I'll do here. I clicked on additional information. That state change once again was detected. Axe was run and it found 6 issues now. So there's more issues now that I have that new content injected into the DOM. If I fix the issues and fill out the form, I'm going to submit. And it just detected those state changes. And the final one was me being redirected to the request blog post confirmation page. It says blog post request for banana bread has been received. Submit another request. And in the extension, it says state change detected 5 issues. Cool. So I think I'm done with my flow. I successfully submitted a new blog post request. And once again, we start off with 23 issues on that first page. We expanded the dropdown. That was 24 issues. Then we got 4 issues on the initial state of the request blog page. I submitted the form. Presumably those same 4 issues existed, so 4 issues were found. I expanded the accordion. 6 issues were found. I just want to go over those totals because when I hit stop, it's going to actually take all those issues into consideration and deduplicate them. And what I mean by deduplication is it's going to take identical issues, and that means an issue, a single accessibility issue raised on a specific element that occurs more than once will collapse into just one unique issue. We have some cool things on the horizon about making that a little more sophisticated, but that's how it works. It's really an individual by individual element deduplication. So when I hit stop, it's going to say saving and removing your duplicates from your report. We'll get some new totals with that deduplication, and we'll get a nice shareable HTML report. And just like a save test, you can give it a better name. I can say, hello, webinar folks, UFA, user flow analysis. And we have a recap of all the accessibility issues found during this flow in one report. So 23 issues in that initial scan. You remember me reviewing that 2 seconds ago. However, when we expanded the options menu dropdown, only one unique issue was found, presumably with the options menu, but there's a chance when you inject content into the DOM, maybe there's multiple things being injected, but there's a chance that based on that new content being added, there could be new accessibility issues introduced as a result. So we do have to do a full page scan. Just want to let you guys know, it's not just running a partial scan on things that we detect being injected. We want to make sure you get that full coverage. And then so on and so forth. So we have that request blog page, remember 4 issues, but when we submitted the form erroneously, there was no new issues found. So it says 0 issues now. So we've deduplicated. We can view this in a nice report. And it'll open up a new tab any minute now. And let me zoom in again. Zoom way in. Okay, so we have a report that should be very familiar with you pro users who use the share, save, test, and share issue feature. This is a new tab opened up in the Axe account portal web application, and we have a very familiar looking up report. It says view hello webinar folks UFA. That's the name of my test that I just gave it. I can copy this link and send it to my friends or my teammates. I can actually download a JSON export representation of this user flow analysis, and it gives me the starting URL. One thing to note, part of this feature set being beta meant we had to make a couple of technical sacrifices, but we plan on addressing in the very near future. One of those sacrifices was that we shipped it with web accessibility testing standard WCAG 2.1 AA, kind of hard coded. So if you have a different standard selected, like 2.2 AAA, we'll actually have to temporarily ignore that setting and kind of force you into 2.1 AA during user flow analysis. If you run a scan outside of UFA or user flow analysis, we still respect that setting like we always have. Same with a save test and its intelligent guided test. It's just for this one feature that we kind of have to ignore that setting, but already have heard some great feedback about how problematic that can be, and we are going to obviously prioritize supporting your settings for user flow analysis included. Another thing that's kind of hard coded, if you will, are needs review and best practices. Those are both going to be off during user flow analysis as part of this initial beta. Like I said before, pretty fast follow-up will be adding support for all three of those settings. But moving on to the fun part, the issues that we found in this user flow to request a new blog post, we found 35 issues, unique issues that is. There was a lot more duplicates. And we have the same breakdown that you're used to seeing in all of our reporting, which is a breakdown by impact. We have found 16 critical issues, 19 serious, 0 moderate, and 0 minor. And below that, we have a new view that you'll become familiar with as you use user flow analyses. Same thing that we're viewing in the extension. It's kind of like a timeline view. It says recorded user flow, and it has this initial thing saying recording started on the /blog page. And then we had 23 issues on that initial scan, one unique issue on the drop-down expansion, and so on and so forth. So we actually can click each of those timeline items come with a clickable issue total, and you can view the issues just for that state. So it's like a filter down from those 35 unique issues just to the issues you found in that state. So one interesting thing we could look at is maybe what was that new issue that was introduced right when I expanded that options menu. Here we have certain ARIA roles must contain particular children. I'm on a new page in the report, something if you are a pro user, you'll be used to. This is like the save test issues view, where you can view a filtered subset or all of your issues in one spot in the web application. You can export just this filtered subset. You can actually dive into the actual issues. In this case, there's just one. So like I said, it looks like we're missing a required child role to conform with ARIA on this request blog post options menu. We get the selector, we get the source code, we get the impact, and we get when this issue is found, the date and time. Again, I can share this with my teammates, this specific issue, or in the case that I have multiple issues rendered, I can share them all. You can get that nice unique link. And from there, hopefully you can work on addressing those issues. So just to summarize, user flow analysis, you're seeing in its infancy stage. It's a beta feature. We are not calling it a beta feature because we plan on removing it, or if you had access to it as a pro user, we're not going to charge for it separately or anything. We're really using the sense of the word beta to inform you that we are open to feedback. We're hoping to get feedback from you, and we will polish it into a more full-fledged feature. So kind of what we're looking to hear from you is obviously all your thoughts, but if you're an existing user who's used intelligent guided testing a lot, we want to hear how you think that you'd want to incorporate intelligent guided testing into a user flow analysis report. We also want to hear what bothers you about the feature. Do you maybe want us to come up with better representations of the state? Do you want us to capture the action that led to a state change? Do you want to be able to edit those names? Do you want us, we're using the term recording for a reason. Do you want to be able to automatically replay it? And if so, why do you want that? How will you use that replay feature? So all of this, I want to hear. At the end, my final slide will give you a couple email addresses you can use, or you can reach out to me if you already know me on the Axe community Slack. I'll put links up to that at the end. And there's also a survey we want you to fill out. Please fill it out. We review it daily. It has a couple of questions that are kind of more targeted for what we're looking to find out about the user flow analysis feature. But like I said, fill that survey out. And if you have more thoughts or bug reports or something that really bothers you that doesn't work for UFA, let me know, because like I said, our roadmap is highly driven by all of your feedback. So I'm going to go back into the slideshow and continue. So yeah, let's take a look at the roadmap. What's coming next for the DevTools extension? And we'll go into Q&A after this. And while we're doing Q&A, I'll try to get that CSS selector demo going that I, for some reason, couldn't get working. So the roadmap, like I just covered, we're committed to making various user flow analysis enhancements. Things as small as, supporting WCAG 2.2, things as big as supporting intelligent guided testing somehow for an entire user flow. It's going to be tricky. Just to kind of get your creative juices flowing, sometimes state changes take place that aren't a result of a user interaction, like a click or a key down or a key combination. Sometimes things like session timeout modals appear from some other thing that's kind of behind the scenes with JavaScript. And so there will be some limitations to what we can automatically replay, but that should not stop us from supporting whatever you need. So please give us feedback on that. The next thing I want to talk about is something I'm really, really excited about. It's going to be huge, I think, in its time-saving capabilities, and I'm really, really, really eager to get this out to you all because I think it'll be huge for your development team. So right now, the name is pending. It's just something I've given it as a code name. Maybe it'll stick. I really like the name, but we might call it something different by the time it gets shipped. We have started development on this thing that I'm calling Intelligent Guided Testing Smart Replay. And so what Smart Replay will do is it will remember your answers to your intelligent guided tests and won't ask you redundant questions that it already knows. Imagine that. We're gonna take the information we already have and start actually leveraging it. So let's say you run a modal IGT, and we say, if you're not familiar, the first thing we ask you is like, okay, does this modal have a trigger? And if you say yes, we have to select the trigger, the thing that launches the modal. And then from there, we try to automatically detect the dialogue. If we somehow can't, we ask you to do so. And then we run a bunch of automated checks, ask you if the modal is dismissible, and we'll run some checks based on that. Just a couple questions we ask. But there's a lot of automated checks. We check that focus gets trapped with tab and shift tab in the modal. We check that screen reader users won't be able to traverse outside the modal. We check that focus is returned to the expected element. There's a bunch of stuff like that. And so what we're going to be able to do with Smart Replay is avoid asking that question on the subsequent run. So you run modal IGT once, you identify the trigger, we automatically find the modal dialog. You answer some questions. Let's say we detect 2 issues: that you didn't trap focus properly and focus didn't return to the trigger. Let's say you go fix those issues and you want to spot check yourself with the modal IGT again. You can trigger a replay on that, and it will, just like you start a normal run, you'll hit start, and then it'll say, the UI will tell you that it's trying to automate everything. And in that case, if it knew everything, if you'd already given it everything it needs to know, like the trigger, and it was able to find the dialogue, all that good stuff, you'll just be spat out on the results screen. You won't have to be asked not one single question. So it's a great way to kind of set up a baseline IGT run. And if you're iterating in development on it, you'll be able to really save a ton of time. You won't have to keep answering questions like, yes, IGT, here's my trigger. You already should have known this. Come on, man, keep up. So we're really excited for this. It's already in development. We're out of the design phase. We're onto development. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to ship that within the coming next couple months. And then the next one I'm also really excited about. Tons of cool stuff happening at DQ across a couple of our different development teams. This one's huge too, the Jira integration. So I've been at DQ for 11 and a half years or so. Long time, over a decade. And I think Jira integration is the #1 feature request I've heard the most in that decade plus time. Users like yourselves have been asking for this for so long. So I'm so excited that we're finally actually solving this problem in a really, really cool way, in the fanciest way possible. So Jira integration, you'll be able to send Axe issues to Jira. And what I mean by that is you'll be looking at a report like the ones I was just showing it for UFA or shared save test, or even in a different product that you use like Axe Monitor. And you'll be able to click a button to share the issue to Jira. And without having to export and then import, no work on your end other than clicking that button. It'll create a Jira ticket for you that you've maybe configured. Of course, you can set up cool things like mapping Axe fields to specific Jira fields. All that stuff will be supported in order for this to work. But long story short, you have an admin authenticate with Jira. You're viewing, anyone in your organization is viewing a report. They can click a button and a Jira ticket's created, and we'll reflect that Jira ticket in our issue. We also have feedback coming in about maybe not a one-to-one, just one Axe ticket to one Jira ticket. Maybe they want something like one Axe or several Axe issues to one Jira ticket, like show me all of my color contrast issues and create one single Jira ticket or epic out of it. So if you already have thoughts, we're a little further out on that than Smart Replay from it being in the wild, but we are in development on it. And we are also, we're so far along that we can probably show you a demo at the next webinar. So I'm really excited for that. But if you already have thoughts, like if you're at an organization that makes heavy use of Jira, let me know if you want to talk, and I can show you what we're thinking with a little demo, and we can hear about how you guys use Jira and how we can make this product work for you. So tons of cool things happening. Those three I'm just really excited about. We're going to be polishing off UFA with a more rich feature set than the current initial beta. We're going to be creating huge optimization gains, huge efficiency gains with IGT Smart Replay, and we're going to give the people what they want finally with the Jira integration. So really, really excited about that. With that, I want to reiterate for the final time, I promise. I've said this 40 times today, but we want to hear what you think. So our priorities are ultimately driven by your feedback. Everyone says that, I'm sure, but it really is true for us for this product. I like when you can do my job for me as product manager. I have to decide what the most impactful features are and what we prioritize, and I just like outsourcing that to you. You can do my job for me better. You can tell me what slows you down. You can tell me what features you wish existed. You can just tell me about your biggest challenges at work, even if you don't know how it might fit into the extension or if it will at all. Just tell me about what's hard for you in the context of accessibility testing or even just prioritization, and I am all ears. And of course, that goes for bugs too. If an accessibility issue in our software, we're committed to immediately fixing that. If it's a false positive, same thing. We are human. We're an accessibility shop, but of course, we have shipped accessibility bugs in the past, and we've always put those at the top of our priority queue. We will add those tickets while sprint's already ongoing. But even if it's a functionality bug, like you click an export button, it's not doing what you expect it to do, please raise those with help desk. So any kind of feedback, including bug reports, you can send to helpdesk@dq.com. That's all one word, helpdesk@dq.com. And like I said before, you can hit me up on Axe Community Slack. I think Liz can toss a link in there if she hasn't already to join Axe Community Slack. And I have an easy email to remember, just my first name, harris@dq.com. So feel free to reach out directly to me. Whatever is easiest for you to give feedback, whether it's that survey that I showed you that's linked to from the user flow analysis report, or it's helpdesk@dq, or Slack message, or fax. Now, I don't really have a fax machine, so you can't do that. But if you have a carrier pigeon and you somehow know my address, that'd be a little creepy, but send me your carrier pigeon message my way, and I will take in your feedback. So I want to thank you all for attending, and I want to give us a ton of time for questions. So let's start those off right now.
Awesome. Thanks, Harris. Great job. We got tons of great feedback. I'll share it with you afterward, make sure that you have the chat log, but people are very excited about user flow analysis. People are very excited about the Jira integration, and we have a ton of questions. Let's start with a bunch of the user flow analysis questions, and I'll dive right into the first one. Let's see here. Someone asked if you know when you'll be shipping the WCAG 2.2 level AA, when you were talking about how user flow analysis works with a specific version right now.
Yeah, good question. I don't have a really concrete answer. I think that's one of the first polishing features we'll add. So if I were to give you a rough ballpark, I would say within the next couple of months. I don't think that one's going to be the most challenging out of the enhancements we make, so I might put that towards the top of the queue. But yeah, if you can provide that same feedback that's something you want through our various feedback channels that I just requested, please do that so I can have kind of something tangible. But I will take note that someone on the webinar asked for that, and I appreciate that. So within the next couple of months is what I'm shooting for right now.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so next question here. Is user flow analysis available in offline mode?
Great question. So because of the underlying deduplication technology we're using, it's not available in offline mode yet. So we're still trying to figure out how that might work. Just to give you a fully transparent look under the hood, that code lives on the back end in our server, and offline mode is inherently not communicating with that back end endpoint. So we're trying to figure out how we might either move that deduplication code to the client somehow with offline mode, or maybe that's something we have to sacrifice. But yeah, currently user flow analysis does not work in offline mode, and it also doesn't work for on-prem and private cloud customers, but we're working on both of those. I don't have a good timeline for offline mode because, like I said, it's a little up in the air how we're going to get the deduplication working.
Okay. And then the single report that the output from the user flow analysis, can that be shared with folks who don't have a license?
Yes, so just like our other shareable reports, it creates a link that should be shareable with anyone on your team, regardless of whether they have an account or not.
Okay.
And of course, if you're in an enterprise that wants to lock down your reports further, we have a setting for that can enforce users logging in order to view the report. So it can go both ways on the flexibility side.
Great. Thank you, Harris. We'll just keep going with the user flow analysis questions here. Does user flow analysis detect events such as hover?
Great question. So if the hover event dictates, so just again, I'll give you a transparent answer to that. We are looking for DOM mutations. So if the hover leads to any kind of mutation, whether that's an attribute or content being inserted or moved or altered, yes. If it's strictly a CSS pseudo state right now, that would not trigger a state change in a new scan. But that's another thing that, on the list of many enhancements that we may make to it. So if you have a good example of a page that you would expect to see a new scan triggered based on a CSS pseudo hover, hit me up and let me know so I can test with that example. That'll be helpful.
Awesome. This question seems somewhat related. So will the user flow analysis catch focus issues? For example, if a modal is opened and the focus doesn't move to it when the modal is closed, does the focus return to the previous element?
So that's something that's currently tested by our modal intelligent guided test.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to test that specific interaction and focus management, I urge you to run a traditional scan on that page in its resting state, not when the modal's open, and then save it and then run a modal intelligent guided test. And that will let you test that focus is trapped, that focus is returned, all that stuff that you just described, that focus is initially brought to the modal even. And so that's an example of something you can do with the modal IGT today. And hopefully we'll be able to, once we figure out how to best incorporate intelligent guided testing into user flow analysis. So if you have an idea of a flow that you would like to test and how you would expect to see intelligent guided tests be run across that whole flow in a way that's not a bunch of extra work or daunting to you or cumbersome based on how many states are recorded, let me know, because it's still something we're trying to figure out the best way to incorporate.
Okay. Is the user flow analysis capable to check dialogues or AJAX, etc., different updated phases of a process?
Yeah. So that's a perfect example. So if you're using AJAX to request something and then reflect the response of that request into the DOM, into the page, then that will trigger a traditional mutation, and we will detect that change and run ACTs automatically. Same thing with a modal. When the modal's opened, in 99% of the implementation I've seen, that will trigger a mutation. If you're doing some weird trickery with CSS, like focus within or something, then it might not, to my pseudo state point earlier. But yeah, traditional modals will be detected when they're inserted, and you'll get an ACT scan that's triggered automatically once it is.
Okay, so someone said this is a great new feature. Will I be able to update the title of each step so that it's meaningful to the user?
Yeah, that's a common piece of feedback we've already heard even in the first couple of weeks. So yeah, I think that is something we're eventually going to inevitably have to do, because what we generate right now is not useful. Just state change detected. We kept it really generic. Again, it's just one of those sacrifices we had to make to get it out to you sooner, and so we could hear your feedback on what you'd want to see. So if you don't mind giving us that feedback along with what you'd expect, why you'd want to change it, like, so how you're going to use those names, and also if you have any ideas on what would be a better default to capture. An example of what we've heard is I want to see understand what led to that state change. So if I submitted a form, we would call that state change clicked submit button. So action, accessible name of control, and role of control that was interacted with, or pressed Shift Control Alt 7 or some crazy access key that you might have something. So that's an example of what we heard so far. But if you have any additional thoughts or want to reemphasize anything I just covered, let me know. But that is something we want to address in the very near future.
Great. There is another suggested change here. So have you considered to automatically scroll the list of detections or use inverse chronological order and add each new finding to the top instead?
Yes, we have actually considered both of those. We're not sure which one is the best one to go with. If you have a preference, let me know in chat or whatever of which one it is and why. But yeah, that's definitely something that's kind of problematic with our current implementation, is it doesn't necessarily scroll you down to the latest state change. And it's something we did identify in QA before we shipped this. But yeah, we are definitely looking to address that. Good call out.
Great. Is there a way to convert the steps captured in a user flow analysis into a JSON to be used by the CLI tool?
Another great question. Surprisingly gotten some common feedback for folks who use both the extension and the CLI and the APIs as well. That's a really cool idea. And it's something that the product manager of the APIs and I have talked about. We're both really excited about the great kind of cross-pollination and marriage between the two products that could create. So yeah, we're looking to solve that in the long run. It's not at the top of like we're in Q2 at DQ. We use a little bit untraditional quarter times, but it's not going to be, that won't be picked up this quarter, but it's something we might be able to pick up in Q3 or Q4. So stay tuned for enhancements there. But I love that idea, getting creative with how we can kind of leverage different tools in different areas to kind of create a symbiotic relationship between all the DQ products you might be using.
Yeah, here's another question that's, I think, in that same vein. Do you have plans for user flow analysis that can be started, stopped, and automated end-to-end tests?
Yeah, it's kind of on the similar thought. So whether it's a CLI or unit test or end-to-end test, yeah, we want to be able to solve that problem. And maybe, and actually could be from the reverse. Maybe you already have our new product Dev Hub running and it's running your end-to-end tests. Maybe being able to test a specific subset or test suite of your end-to-end tests in the extension and have it automatically drive the browser so you can kind of do a manual spot check of it. It's something that's been brought up. We're in more of like a brainstorming phase on that. We definitely don't have like designs and even technical proposals on how we might do that. But I love that thought. Keep those ideas coming at us because I think that'd be really cool.
Great. Let's see, another UFA one. Would you get different results if you ran the analysis via keyboard-only navigation or with a screen reader, or should that all be captured via mouse clicks?
Well, okay, I understand why you're asking that question, and I don't mean to give an obvious answer, but if your application is inaccessible and does different things based on keyboard clicks as an enter or space on a button versus mouse, then it will result in differences, obviously, just to state the obvious up front. But yeah, like the Axe Core Accessibility Rules Engine is built with screen readers and the specs, ACK name or accessible name specs in mind. So we kind of try to automatically cover things that the screen readers are interfacing with, the accessibility tree kind of in the browser. So in that sense, you don't need to have a screen reader turned on. That should not impact your results of a UFA or any ACK scan, whether you're using the CLI, the extension, the APIs, whatever. But yeah, if your app behaves differently based on different interactions, then you should expect to see differences in those results, assuming that there's a difference in accessibility issue count there. But I think that's a good thing to call out, where maybe you should use that as kind of a test case assertion where you run through a user flow as a mouse user and try to do that same one as a keyboard user and see if there's any differences.
Great.
Then you might uncover we're missing keyboard operability on one of these controls, or something different happens with a mouse compared to a keyboard user.
Yep. And just a reminder, I did drop the link to the user flow analysis feedback survey. So as Harris said, please feel free to add your feedback there as well. A couple more questions about how user flow analysis is going to work with other DQ products. So someone asked if if the user flow analysis script can be uploaded to Monitor. And then someone also asked, will the identified issues be able to be imported into Axe Auditor as IGT and automated results are?
Okay, yeah, great other cross-pollination points. The Monitor answer is in the same bucket as the integrations with the CLI and DevHub and other automations that we offer at DQ. So we're still kind of in the brainstorming and planning phases there, but that's yet another idea that's been tossed out internally at DQ. Really cool potential there. So stay tuned for updates on that, whether you can use the UFA to record scripts that you can then upload to Monitor. And same thing. So for uploading results, export JSON into from UFA into Auditor, that is meant to work already. I think we've identified a bug at import time, but that will be something addressed in the very near future. So the answer is yes. We actually tested it before shipping UFA and it was working. Something minor changed on the receiving end there that we have to fix, but it's intended to work where you can upload, you can export UFA JSON and import into Auditor. And we just need to figure out how that's going to be mapped into Auditor test cases. So that will be shipped in the very near future.
Awesome. Thank you, Harris. And thank you everyone for these great questions. Next one here, can we add manual guided tests to user flow analysis?
Okay, I'll take that as, can you do manual testing and intelligent guided testing?
I think so, yeah.
Is some manual. And I think no matter what you meant by that question, it'll be the same answer. So right now, that's something we want to figure out how to best support. So that's one of those main points of emphasis in the survey that Liz has linked to, of how you would see that working. Because we've gotten, I don't want to muddy the waters, but we've gotten a bunch of different ideas of a more controlled approach where you can choose specific states you want to run specific IGTs on, or ideas where you start from the first state and it basically starts automating through it, queuing up all the IGTs, which may be a little daunting. So we're a little worried about that. But we want to hear how you see that working, because we will let the most common feedback kind of take precedent, and we'll try to solve the problems that the most common feedback identifies in a way that works for the most users. So yeah, I just want to hear how you'd see that working. So the answer right now is no, you can't do intelligent guided testing or manual testing with user flow analyses, but that's something that, that's the whole reason. One of the whole reasons we put a beta tag on it for now is we want to, once we move out of beta, we will have solved that problem. We're not going to, like I said, we're not going to strip any functionality out of it. We're just going to make it a full-fledged polished feature before we're going to remove that beta tag from it.
Thank you, Harris. And a couple of people just asked about the recording. Just a reminder, we are going to be sending the recording of the webinar along with the slides and everything, probably early next week. So everyone will get that. A couple more UFAs, and then let's switch to some Jira integration questions. Will UFA work in a dev or local environment?
Yep. The extension as a whole will work if you're running it on localhost or some dev server or staging or QA, whatever it might be. Basically anything that you can run in Chrome, you are able to run the extension on. I believe if it's a local file, like if it's not being served by a local server, you'll have to enable some Chrome internal flag to allow extensions to run on file URLs. But yeah, local dev server, staging environment, all the above, you can run the extension, including user flow analysis on.
About user flow analysis as well. Okay, one more UFA, and then let's go to some Jira integration questions. Can the UFA check shadow DOM using frameworks like React or Angular?
Yes, so we do have full shadow DOM support for Axe scans, and as well as intelligent guided tests. But yeah, so that means we're running Axe scans during user flow analyses. So it does support finding issues within shadow DOMs and web components and all that good stuff. That has been a technical challenge for us over the years, and we've uncovered some awesome bugs thanks to reports that you all have made. But yeah, that is something that we do support, in addition to iframes and nested iframes even. We have Shadow DOM support. And also one thing we've been working on that you might have seen at the bottom of our release notes for the last 6+ months is cross-origin iframes, which has a whole can of worms of technical challenges that have been introduced to us, but we have been working actively on cross-origin iframe support, and we actually have some really tangible, awesome enhancements coming out very soon with that as well.
Great, thank you, Harris. Okay, let's go to a couple Jira integration questions. In addition to Jira, are there plans to integrate with Azure DevOps? A couple of people asked this.
Absolutely. We have Jira kind of as our first proof of concept for the integrations product. But we are building this with other integrations in mind. Absolutely. We are not, yeah, we are already talking, already gathering information on what the next best issue tracking system that we would add support for. So yeah, Azure is definitely at the top of the list of, I know a lot of people use that as well. If, like I said, even before we have anything demoable or you even have your hands on the Jira product itself, if you use Jira or any other issue tracking system, please let me know. Send that my way so I can really make the best decision on what the next integrations we support are. But in the long run, we're building this with the idea that we'll support many different issue tracking systems.
Awesome, and people are excited about that in chat. Okay, so you mentioned earlier that CSS selector demo. Do you think you'll be able to get to that? If not, maybe we could do a quick recording and send it to folks afterward. What do you think, Harris?
Yeah, I think admittedly I was messing with our feature flags and other things before this. And I was hoping to check that out while we're answering questions, but I have been unable to do that. So I will try to, in the background, take a look at my feature flags and see if I'm missing something. And I'll let you know, in the last couple of minutes, we can get that demo. We can keep going through questions.
Okay, sounds good. Let's see, this one was from the beginning. So could the tabs be not included in the scrollable area? I keep losing how to go back to the overview. I think this is feedback maybe just on the UI in general and the tabs.
Okay, yeah. So, yep, I understand the overview and the guided
Yeah.
test tabs. You're finding that you can't find those again. Okay, yeah. That's good feedback because that will have changed since we unstickified it. So that's good to know that you're finding it hard to go back between tabs. So I'll take note of that feedback. Appreciate it.
And does the extension work for pages that are behind a login? This is just a more generic question.
Yeah. So right now you can't script the extension to do anything, but you can record one now with user flow analysis. So as long as you can log in using the browser and then you can scan before and after that, then yeah, you can pretty much test unauthenticated and authenticated pages. But you'll have to obviously be the one authenticating, not the extension itself.
Thank you, Harris. Let's see here, got a couple more. Thank you all for the very engaged and all the questions here. I think this is back to user flow analysis. Is there a way to delete the save scans? When I realize I forgot to hit a series of interactions, then redo the scan so we don't end up with a bunch of save scans we no longer need. Oh, I think
I'm talking on mute. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, if you go to the kebab menu of a save test, or here, I'll share my screen. So if you go back to an existing UFA, there is a delete scan button down here.
Okay.
So that should be easy enough. And if you're looking for, okay, how do I find those in the first place? If you go to my view save tests, top bar, menu bar, nav item, you can find both save tests, like this Hello Webinar one, and user flow analyses. So if I go back to a previously recorded user flow analysis, I can go in and delete that scan. If you're talking about save tests themselves, if you go to one, like the one I just saved in front of you all today, and go to this top bar options menu, it's right after after the start new scan button. You open that and then scroll down. There's a delete test option that you can delete a save test, so you can kind of clean up your save tests.
Great, thanks for showing that.
Yeah.
All right, I think we have time for a couple of more questions unless you were able to work some magic over there on the, the demo front.
I was not.
Okay. Here's what do
But
you think?
it is enabled when you don't do trickery and weird stuff in production. I'll be able to check it out. There's a little magnifying glass search icon that will show up in the expanded state of the element selector.
Awesome. Okay, let's take another question. So this one's about false positives and user flow analysis. In user flow analysis, where multiple screens and pages could get scanned at once, how do you ensure that false positives are still easy to identify?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yep.
It's in the Q&A.
Yeah, it's the most recent one from Koba in the Q&A.
I'm not seeing one.
Uh,
Sorry,
in,
can you repeat it?
yeah, in user flow analysis, where multiple screens and pages could get scanned at once, how do you ensure that false positives are still easy to identify?
Okay. I mean, these are just traditional scans. So Axe Core itself won't, its manifesto or mantra is zero false
Yep.
positives. So we'll avoid them to begin with. And then I think part of that, part of your question is kind of addressed by the deduplication. So as long as we're not finding false positives in any scan and we are able to identify duplicates to kind of reduce noise, even across the most complicated flows, you should be able to safely focus on issues that are not false positives. If you do find a false positive, like I said, it's probably the thing we take most serious here in the Axe Core team, especially, really stands by the zero false positives claim. So if you do find one, of course, we have found some in the past, very seldomly. We will address those as fast as possible.
Great. Okay, well, I think we are at time, Harris. Thank you so much for sharing all of these wonderful new features with everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining and for these great questions. As a reminder, we're going to send the recording and all of the presentation materials over to you probably early next week. Definitely join us on the Axe Slack community. Harris and many other team members are on there often. Yeah, and thanks so much, Harris. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. We might have just identified that search by bug is it might not be showing up for any of you. So we're going to go offline and figure that out. And hopefully you'll be able to look at that by tomorrow or something if it is in fact gone for everybody. So sorry about that.
Awesome.
Thank you
Well,
for
glad the
joining.
bug was identified and hopefully we can squash it soon.
Doing live QA on the webinars. Love it.
Yes, thank you all.